All right, so I have a lot of people who reach out to me for advice, and a lot of times the advice that they're looking for is 2.0 advice, right? It's a few steps down the road, and a lot of times what we have to do is we have to back up to 1.0 and solve some problems there before we can get to that 2.0 level advice. And a lot of the advice that I offer is that 2.0 and beyond advice, but I want to back it up for a moment and just give the 1.0 advice, right? The really fundamental things that need to be in place to launch a world-class nonprofit, right? So I'm just going to give you 5 things here real quick that I think will be a great benefit for you as you think through the fundamental basics of your nonprofit and start to think through, do we have these things in place, right? Are we crystal clear on these things? Are we doing these things really well? Because if you're not, the 2.0 stuff won't matter nearly as much. You've got to get the 1.0 stuff right first. And then beyond that, the 2.0 can build on that and you can start to really see some exponential gains there. But all right, with that said, let's jump in here. So I've got nonprofit launch basics, and here's the 5 things we're going to talk about. Number 1, what lights your fire, right? And we're talking about here the person who is running the organization. What lights your fire? Number 2, mission clarity, just becoming super clear on your mission and being able to communicate that clearly to the community. Number 3, what does your nonprofit need? A lot of people jump into this thing and they don't quite understand nonprofits to the degree that they need to understand what does a nonprofit need to thrive, right? And so they move in a lot of different directions as opposed to giving their nonprofit what they need and really minimizing their focus and staying focused on that. So, and then number 4, what are you good at, right? So it's one thing that lights your fire. Number 2, what are you good at? And we want to make sure that you're doing what you're good at within your organization. And then number 5, recruiting a team. That is the great accelerator within all of this. And I'll talk about that more in a moment. So number 1, what lights your fire, okay? So there's a movie called Walk the Line. It's the story of Johnny Cash. And there's a scene in that movie that I absolutely love when it comes to understanding what lights your fire. So in this scene, what's happening is Johnny Cash is in a recording studio and he's playing a song. He and his band are playing a song for the record producer or whoever the guy is. And they're playing just a very standard vanilla version of a gospel song, and the record producer stops them mid-song and essentially says, I can't sell your music, right? I've heard it a million times in a million different ways. I can't sell it. And then he looks at Johnny and he says, here's how I want you to think about this, okay? You've got a limited amount of time with me. I want you to see yourself as having just got in a car crash, right? And you were the only one in your car, and you were ejected from your car, and now you're lying in a ditch dying, right? And nobody's coming down this road. You're lying in a ditch dying. What is the one song you sing? And that's so powerful for me. It's like, oh, man, I love it. If that doesn't give you clarity, I don't know. So anyways, he says that, and that's what I'm getting at here, right? With respect to your nonprofit, what lights your fire? What makes you angry? What breaks your heart? How do you wish the world would change, right? What's that one thing that you want to shout from the rooftops, right? And here's why I asked that question, because your nonprofit should be aligned with that, right? If your nonprofit is something that you're mildly passionate about, you're going to have a really hard time being highly successful in leading this thing, okay? If you're not willing to die on the hill for this cause, right? If it's not something that you can't put your entire heart into every single day, then you're going to have a hard time being successful. I have here the difference between success and failure is wholeheartedness, right? It is jumping into this thing with everything you have and being willing to look crazy in doing it, being willing to hear no a million times as you do it, and so on and so forth, right? So that's a really important starting point. What lights your fire? And we dive into that a little bit more in my online course, but what lights your fire is a great question to start with. Number 2, mission clarity. So again, I have a lot of people that I talk with, and I ask them, hey, what does your organization do? And it takes them 10 minutes to tell me what their organization does. And there's some, and by the time they're done with that 10 minutes, I'm still kind of like, I'm not exactly sure I understand what they do, right? that's a problem. Where there's muddiness in your organization's mission and in how you explain that to the community, you will lose opportunities at money and people support. Right. You'll have a hard time bringing money and people into your organization. So you've got to become crystal clear on what does our organization do, what's the heartbeat, and how do I communicate that in a very clear and concise and compelling way. Right. So what does your organization do? Keep it simple and clear. Like I said, where the waters are muddy, you will lose opportunities at money and people. And it's also important to understand how the community understands your mission, right? As opposed to how you understand it, right? You've got it all up in your head and you understand some of the more nuanced specifics of it. You understand the jargon. You understand all of these different things, right, about it. What you've got to do is, and here's something that just popped in my mind. Albert Einstein said, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, then you don't know it well enough, right? That's a great way to think about it. Not that the whole community is full of 6-year-olds, right? But you've got to simplify your mission so much that you can explain it in a way that a 6-year-old will grasp it as soon as you say it to them, right? So no jargon, not too much information. And then something that I see happening oftentimes too is that people will go into the community and they will explain not only the 1.0 version of their mission, but the 5.0 version of their mission, right? And we're going to have buildings and we're going to have, 49 different locations and we're going to have, and that's all well and good, right? And that's what drives the visionary sometimes, right? Is like, oh, this huge vision. And it's not always bad to share that. But at the end of the day, you got to know, hey, what stage are we in right now? And how can I communicate that to the community, right? Or what's our next stage, right? You don't want to go much farther than hey, where are we headed right now, right? And again, you want to avoid providing too much information. Where there's a lot of information, even if it's clearly shared, a lot of times you're just going to overwhelm people and they're not going to be able to process it and they're going to walk away with muddy waters, right? The less you can say to really help people grasp this thing, the better. All right, number 3, what does your nonprofit need? Here's the deal. At the end of the day, there are only 2 things that fuel a nonprofit. It's people and money. People and money, right? Those are the gas that go into your nonprofit. You must continue to put gas in your nonprofit in the form of those 2 things. Okay? So you got to understand that. So, and then if you understand that, you have to know then, okay, if either I or someone within my organization must become world class at bringing people and money into my organization, right? Or we're going to struggle. And that's all there is to it. You're going to, if you're truly incredibly passionate about this thing, you're going to have to get good at bringing people and money into it if you want it to succeed, or you're going to have to find someone else who's good at that, right? So understanding that a nonprofit needs people and money. That is food for your nonprofit. It's gas for your nonprofit. Without it, your nonprofit will starve. End of story, right? Number 4, what are you good at? Okay, and hopefully this aligns with what lights your fire, right? I would think that it does, because a lot of times what lights our fire is what we're good at, right? That's part of why it lights our fire, because it's like, I'm really good at this thing, right? It gives me energy. I'm successful at it. All of those things that helps us. That helps it to light our fire, right? But understanding again, if what lights your fire is not bringing people and money into your organization, and you don't want to get good at that thing, then you better find someone who is good at that, right? Pronto, ASAP, as soon as you can. Without this, you will struggle. And here's the whole deal here. What we're trying to do is make sure you're in the right seat on the bus, right? We've got to make sure you're in the right seat on the bus. Otherwise, you will not be as effective as you could be in leading this organization. And now, with all of that said, I know a lot of times people will say, well, I have this huge vision. I love it. I'm so on fire and passionate about it, but I'm not good at fundraising and I hate doing it. Press pause right there, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that it's the wrong seat on the bus for you, right? When I jumped into nonprofit work, I was not good at fundraising and it made me incredibly uncomfortable, right? And so I could have said, wrong seat for me. I'm going somewhere else. Don't do that, right? Don't do that. Challenge yourself. Open yourself up to it. Here's what I found out about fundraising, right? Is that fundraising is all about relationship. It's all about connecting with people deeply. And that is something that I love. That's my favorite activity, right? And so at the end of the day, I love fundraising. It was just a lot of the money stuff that made me uncomfortable. And over time, I got good at it, right? And it ended up being my seat on the bus and the seat that I loved sitting in, right? So again, just because it's uncomfortable and you're not good at it now doesn't mean that you're in the wrong seat at this point, right? And then number 5, recruit a team, right? At the beginning of this, I said that a team, a quality team, is the great accelerator, right? And it's the great burnout preventer. And most nonprofit leaders do not have a quality team. And here's what I mean by team, right? So I mean your internal team, which is your board, your staff, and your volunteers, right? You need a quality team there. Your community. So this is your external support system. People who maybe aren't involved with the organization, right? But they're mentors and coaches or people in a similar boat, right? Other nonprofit leaders or other people within your nonprofit if you're working for a large nonprofit, right? Developing strong bonds and relationships in that space is really, really important. And I just put here people with whom you can share the good, bad, and ugly, or people who understand and get you on a deep level. You're going to need to be seen, heard, and understood over and over and over in this journey because it's a difficult journey, right? So you've got to set up that external support system as well. Partnerships is another piece of this recruiting a team. Okay, a great accelerator, especially if you're a startup nonprofit, is to partner with other organizations who have a similar vision or whose vision or mission complements your mission, right? So you want to find other organizations, and you want to be careful here, right? With all of this team stuff, you want to recruit people who fit your culture, right? You don't want to sacrifice culture just for the sake of building a team. That's always a bad idea. But if you can find other organizations whose culture is similar to yours and aligns with yours, and whose mission is complementary to yours and yours is complementary to theirs, man, run the play. Partner with them. It will always help. It's a rising tide lifts all boats situation, right? It's always a good thing. It will accelerate your growth in the nonprofit world. And then number 4, of course, donors, right? They're the engine. Without the money, you don't go anywhere. No money, no mission. You've got to make sure that you're recruiting that solid team of donors as well, right? I've already mentioned it a couple of times, but your team is a great accelerator and burnout preventer. You're going to recruit them through storytelling, and that's a really important piece of the overall puzzle. Become great at telling the story. And then lastly, here's another little tip with your team, especially your internal team. I'm referring more to your board staff and volunteers here. Find their fire, right? The first question we asked about you is what lights your fire? Now, once you recruit a team, you're going to start asking what lights their fire, right? What are they good at? How do I enable them to run in that lane within our nonprofit, right? That is, oh man, you want to light some internal help on fire, right? Their board staff, volunteers. You want to really help them to love what they do within your organization and become a great ambassador for your organization. Find what lights their fire and what they're good at and plug them into that within your organization. Okay. Those are the 5 fundamental steps to put in place as you launch an organization. If you don't do those things, again, you're going to struggle with any of the 2.0 advice that I have as well. So start there, and then we'll go from there.